5, 4, 3.
You are invited to begin this course by articulating your definition of literacy. Stop for a few minutes and write out your own definition of literacy. More traditional conceptions of literacy mean the ability to read and write. Experts in the field of literacy education have expanded this conception to think about literacy as involving more than reading and writing print. Most conceptions of literacy today involve the ability to understand and use language in a specific context. Let me share an example. I am a knitter. When I began knitting, I could barely understand what knitting patterns were telling me to do or what people in knitting groups I tried to join were talking about when they described color work, blocking, or dyeing yarns. I could read and write the words they were saying, but I could not understand other knitters or use patterns. Through time, reading, conversation with other knitters, and much trial and error while knitting, I now consider myself fairly literate in knitting. I am now able to understand and use the language knitters use. Take a few minutes to think about something you are an expert in and how that can be considered something you are literate in. Now that we have defined literacy, let's explore our course topic of content area reading. In this class, you will be exploring more than just reading, so I will often use the general phrase content area literacy instead of content area reading. Let's begin by considering the question, why does content area literacy instruction matter? First of all learning is language-based. This refers to the idea that people learn through language, through listening, speaking, reading, and writing about ideas. That means that every teacher needs to be a teacher of reading to support their students to learn effectively through language in texts. Now let's consider the question, what is content area literacy instruction? Content area literacy involves integrating literacy instruction in the content areas to promote content learning. The ultimate goal is more effective teaching that results in more learning of content information in all classes. It also involves helping students to be more strategic readers, writers, and discussers by teaching them to use literacy strategies. There are 3 cognitive components of content literacy to think about when designing lesson plans that integrate literacy and content teaching. First, we have general literacy skills and strategies students need to decode and comprehend texts. Second, students need prior knowledge of content they are learning and reading about. Finally, students need content-specific skills and strategies, which refers to the specific strategies needed in the different subject areas. Think of these components as beginning with the most basic to more complex content skills and strategies. Let me share an example of what these 3 cognitive components of content area literacy look like in one lesson. Let's say a group of students were reading a text in their social studies class written by an owner of a plantation in the southern U.S. in the early 1800s about the daily lives of African slaves. For the first component, students would need the general literacy skills and strategies of decoding words on the page and summarizing the main idea of the text. For the second component, students would need to make connections to their prior knowledge about slavery and plantation life in that time period. For the third component, students would need to use the content-specific skills and strategies to approach the text like a historian would. This would involve considering how the perspective of the author, as the plantation owner, would affect the way living conditions were written about in the text. As you move through this class, continue thinking about how these 3 components can be part of the way teachers support readers to engage with text in all their content area classes.